The Cintas Center strikes again. That's what I'm running with here. I think this is the 10th straight home win for Xavier in this crazy rivalry, the crosstown shootout. Look, Xavier gets up for big games. I think that's fair. They got some good performances from two guys they needed good performances from tonight. That's Davion McKnight and Quincy Olivari. Cincy, we questioned, are they going to be ready for a game like this? To my eye test, they were not. I thought this was more about Cincy not really playing well than it was Xavier playing great. What did you see in this game, Brian?
That Sean Miller made a big deal about this. I think he called it Xavier's last stand. And I think the Musketeers play like that. We talked about it in the preview about how, if they lose 4 in a row and they're 4-6, yikes, because things could go downhill quickly, particularly with what's ahead of them in the Big East. And I think they played like they knew that. Cincinnati did not match that for a large portion of this game. They also shot the ball really poorly. Mm-hmm. Like, as bad as Cincy played, they were 5 of 23 from 3, I think is what they finished, which is well below how they normally play. If a couple more of those threes go in, I'm sure there's some added juice to them. And what was ultimately a 6-point game, I think it was, late, trading buckets back and forth down the stretch there. It was back and forth between like 6, 7, 5. A couple more of those go in, it's a different game or different conversation where Cincinnati did not play well and still may have beat Xavier. So this was Cincinnati's first test, and it's hard to not be a little disheartened about what you saw. At the same time, if you want to look at it from a positive standpoint, they did not play well and still almost beat what we think is a decent Xavier team. If Cincinnati shoots its more percentage, I think they win that game anyway. So my red flag moving forward is going to be if this happens again, the next time they get tested. Because I'm willing to think this might be a one-off. We played on the road and shot poorly. But they haven't played enough big games to really know.
Yeah, right. That's the elephant in the room with this team for sure. I think it's totally fair to just like put an emoji next to this one and say this was a shooting discrepancy game. 21% from 3 for Cincinnati, 47% from 3 for Xavier, 62% from the line for Cincinnati. They made 10 free throws. Xavier, 85% from the line. They made 22 free throws. I think if you simulate the game, the exact same shots these teams got, and you did it 10 times, I think Cincinnati wins the game. I haven't looked at the shot quality metrics, but like that's what I would assume is Cincinnati wins the game more often than not. With that said, tough place to play, crazy rivalry environment, desperation from Xavier. It all makes sense when you add it up. What doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to pick out a guy from the Cincy side. I'm picking on him a little bit, but it's because he's an old Big Ten guy. CJ Frederick makes no sense to me. I love this kid as a player on paper. I think he has a really high ceiling. I think he's one of the best like sharp shooting guys you could put in there because he's a really good passer. He doesn't turn the ball over. His good games this year are like awesome. Like he's had double digits 4 times. He makes 3 or more threes in those games. He doesn't really do anything negative from the offensive side in those games. But his bad games, he gives you nothing. Like this is his 3rd game with 0 in the last 7 games. He has 3 in a different game in that span. Like to me, they've got to find a way to get him involved even when he's struggling instead of just like it's not him and we're playing 4-on-5 tonight. Is that crazy for me to kind of single him out like that?
It's not crazy, but he has also not been somebody who can help himself necessarily. Like he's got to have things schemed up for him. When he was at his best at Iowa, he could do it a little bit, but Iowa's offense was so wide open, particularly playing with Luka Garza. Like there was lots of opportunities for him. Then he got hurt, and he really hasn't been the same last couple of years since the injuries he suffered, even going back to his time at Kentucky. Now he's somebody who is almost strictly like a spot-up shooter. He needs things to be done for him, and there are times where it works and times where it doesn't. But if it doesn't, there's no other way that he individually has found to get himself involved in the same capacity. So he's hamstrung a little bit in that sense where like, if you get him an open look, I trust him to knock it down way more often than not. But if you're not getting him open looks, he's getting cardio in.
Yeah. It's not often I think you see a team have 4 different guys score 15 points and lose the game. But while I'm picking out Frederick as the guy with 0, I thought Cincy had 4 players that were productive in this game on the offensive side of the ball, and then nothing from everybody else. And
Yeah.
that is tough given how, like, I think the 4 played really, really well, but it still felt like they were one man down, almost like in a power play. And then on the
Yeah.
Xavier side, we talked about Des Claude a little bit in the preview. I haven't been super impressed with him this year. He finished with 11 points in this game. I have a take with Xavier that I think they are much more dangerous when Claude is the 3rd best player on a night than they are when he's their best player. What do you see there?
I think that is fair. I think the tough part comes into, at least this point in the season, he has been arguably their most consistent, for better or worse. Not to say he's been some rock solid contributor all year, but he's somebody who has A, been able to stay on the floor, and B, has most of the time a matchup that works in his favor. I think that says more about other guys on Xavier than it does Claude in particular. But I think he gets in this point because he has been one of the more consistent contributors offensively. But yeah, they're at their best when they don't need him to be the guy to go score 20 off the bounce.
Yeah. Yeah. I would like to see more of this from McKnight and Oliveri. We kind of downplayed McKnight's impact. I like Oliveri a lot. I think he's been really good this season, but McKnight is a swing piece that can be all over the place. He's had really, really awful games. This was by far his best offensive game of the season, I thought, and he still didn't even like kill it from 2-point range. Like he just hit a couple threes,
Right.
got to the free throw line a ton, and 4 assists to 1 turnover was pretty good. So, all right, we'll end with this with both of these teams. Yeah, this could get interesting. Xavier's 5-5. They're in the Big East. The Big East looks top heavy at this point. Does Xavier make the NCAA tournament? Yes or no?
I'm going to lean no, but I think it's going to swing on a like 2-7 or 3-6 quarterfinal in the Big East tournament.
Okay.
Where Xavier's the 6th seed or the 7th seed, and if they're able to upset UConn or Marquette or Creighton in one of those games, then it becomes a real conversation. They're very bubblicious to me.
Yeah, it feels very bubbly. And sometimes I like bubbles. Sometimes I don't. I like bubbles with this team. This is going to be a fun little bubbly team to watch. Cincinnati, this is going to sound crazy. They're 7-1. They haven't beaten anybody. They're in the Big 12 this season. There's a lot of good basketball teams in the Big 12. Does Cincinnati make the NCAA tournament? Yes or no?
I'm going to say yes. Because you can have a losing record in the Big 12 and still get it. We see that every year. And I think just the gaudy number of wins they're going to put up in the non-conference, coupled with the Big 12 strength of schedule you get just from playing in the Big 12. Like they could go, I think the Big 12 plays 20 games. You go 8-12 in the Big 12, I think, and still get in. Like that, given their non-conference record, I think that puts Cincinnati at like 18, 19, 20 wins. And while half those wins may not be against anybody worth their salt, a Big 12 team with 18, 19, 20 wins is going to get it.
Yeah. So we saw last season, West Virginia went 19-15 overall. They went 7-11 in the Big 12. They were a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. There was this big group of teams at the bottom of the Big 12 last year that all looks like they were bubbly for a while. In the end, Oklahoma and Texas Tech both went 5-13 at the bottom. Texas Tech finished 500. Those teams missed the tournament. Oklahoma State was 20-16 overall, 8-10 in the Big 12, but they missed the tournament. West Virginia got in over them. It's kind of interesting. This year, the Big 12 adds a couple really quality opponents, as everybody knows. Houston is into this conference, and now Cincinnati looks like a good team. BYU is also into this conference. I don't think they make the tournament. I'm selling this roster pretty harsh. That's where I'm at. I think it's going to be a very rude wake-up call when they have to play some real teams very soon here in the Big 12. That's Brian Rauf from Heat Check CBB. I'm GregWaddell from Sleepers Media. Subscribe to the channel so you see all our previews and recaps this season.